Okay, we'll try that. It's kind of an experiment there. Okay, so we're here to talk about an empowerment process because Janet Swartz is coming on June 29th and 30th to do the empowerment process workshop here in these two rooms. And
Who's coming?
Janet Swartz, J. Her website is theempowermentprocess.com.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty easy. It's exactly how you spell theempowermentprocess.com. And there's a whole bunch of testimonials and things like that on the website to explain a little bit more. It's not something that we explain the whole process to you, obviously, because that's something that you need to come and learn at the workshop. But this is my model of health. This is how I explain beliefs and belief processing now. And the empowerment process is one of 5 different belief processes that I know. And it's the one that I usually use now, especially if somebody hasn't done belief processing with me. Unless they are averse to writing things down or something, that is the one I use usually first because it's very simple. It's very easy for me because I've done it a lot. And it's it feels official because you're writing stuff down and there's a definite energy shift at the end. So it's very cut and dry in some ways for me. It's very black and white and I can feel the energy shift so we know that something happened. So, and really most of it is about being aware of what the problem is and then being aware of what life is like without the problem and then shifting the energy. So those are the 3 main parts to that process. This is how I explain beliefs. So this is how I see you now as a person. Your soul comes in, right, into a body, and then you have already attached to your soul karma, right, which is just, all karma means is action and reaction. So it's not like some kind of judgment on your soul. You don't have people sitting around going, oh my god, you just did this thing. It's not like that. It's just, you did, things happened, People did stuff, you did stuff, actions were taken. And so then there's reactions to those actions. That's really how simple it is. And that stuff is really, actually, see how I have a dotted line around it? That stuff is really part of how you create your own reality. Okay? So all of this karma stuff in spiritual movements, like we just have this karma and there's nothing we can do about it, that's not true. You have karma, but there's something you can do about it. Okay? It's all about changing your mental body, which also changes your emotional body. I like to talk about the emotional body a lot because that's somewhere that I have a lot of awareness. So, your mental body is how you create your reality. So a lot of gurus and spiritual teachers and different people talk about this, that the mind actually dreams up who you are, what you believe, what can happen and what can't happen, what is right and wrong. All those things are part of your beliefs, right? Your beliefs create everything, is what I've learned. And I've learned this from studying stuff out here first, then studying this body, and then studying this body, and I finally got to that one.
Yes. It's not from inside out, it's from the outside.
Well, that's how I learned it,
Yeah.
but it is actually from the inside out that we create ourselves, so. Please raise your hand, too, if you have questions, because I'm totally open to that. So I studied the physical body first, because I was interested in spirituality, and I knew that there was something more to people, especially when you go to get medical help and the medicine is too strong, or you have side effects, or you do things like meditate, which would be kind of more in your energetic or mental body, and that helps physical things. And then you're like, there's something, right? There's something going on there. Like people now, right, do a lot of yoga, Tai Chi. That stuff is all in here, in the energetic body. So it is affecting, because it is right next to your emotional and your physical body, it is affecting your emotions and your physical body and your energy. And you can tell that when you do it, probably, right? I would say actually that stuff's like on the edge between your physical and your energetic body. Because you're obviously using your physical body, and then there's a lot of energetic stuff going on. And that's pretty obvious to people usually. Our Western society started out very much concrete, based on like the collective at first. Then we started studying the physical. And then we started finally admitting that the energetic exists. And that's when things started to get interesting, right? Because now we have like hundreds of studies about meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, massage, things that were not considered valid, right, for a while. Actually, it's really funny though, because around the turn of the century, that's what they considered medicine. Even in Western society, you know, what they considered medicine was like enemas and massage and
How to cleanse your body.
Yeah,
And you're putting
the
pills
herbal
on.
medicine. And so most of what people now are starting to be comfortable with is moving this way, right? After I studied the physical body a lot with Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and things like that, I mean, which we're getting into the energetic actually, because you're really studying energy when you're studying that stuff. And I learned things like Diksha, energetic transfer, like Reiki. People are really into Reiki now, it's in here. And then I started realizing that nothing was changing because my emotional body was not getting work done. You will get effects until a certain point, and then that's when you have to start going to the next one, right? So, the emotional situation in our country, our world, our whole collective body is extremely repressed. And we're starting to be aware of that now. We're starting to finally talk about that. So I'm really excited because we're moving. Because people are realizing, oh, when you deal with your emotions, it starts making everything else clearer, right? Your body, your energy, everything starts to clear up. So that's one of the major focuses for me, that was part of my purpose in life, but also after coming up with an emotional process with my mentor for processing feelings. I also studied with Janet. I studied the empowerment process with Janet 2 different times actually. And I also studied Rory Goff's particle work. I think he calls it waveful work now. And I studied radical forgiveness, and I studied Byron Katie, and I studied EFT tapping. Those are all things that address your mental body, right? And also some of them your emotional body as well. But, so those things, when you start working in here, that's when it gets really interesting. Then you can change this, right? And you can change this. It's very obvious because as soon as you make a mental shift, what happens is you feel something different, right? And in here, for about 2 or 3 days, you're probably going to have emotional effects, which means all of the repressed emotions you were not dealing with before that were attached to that belief come up in order to be felt. And it's just a couple days. So it's kind of awesome because you get rid of like something that's been limiting your entire life in a couple days. Because after it goes through the emotional body, then you're into the energetic, and it's like, it just happens naturally, and you're just going to change. But you won't probably see physical effects for a month or 2, most likely. But that's still very fast, actually. So I've watched people try to change their entire health from here, right? A lot. Like changing their diet and basically what they're doing, they don't know it, but they're trying to change their beliefs through diet. And that, I'm not saying that doesn't work, but it probably takes about 50 to 100 years. Because I've seen a lot of them, and the progress will be like really cool at first, right? You'll see really good changes because this did need to be addressed, but it's not changing this, and so after a while it starts to plane out and it kind of isn't going anywhere anymore. So that's what you hear with people who, when they get into raw food or they do, Ayurvedic stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you can get really good effects from energetically for a while from addressing those. Then you have to start working with these bodies. And then the cool thing is that when you get to this point where you're like, oh, I need to work my mental body, then you can take care of everything with that. And I'm not saying that you just forget to exercise or, that you shouldn't eat good food. I'm not saying that at all. It's always important to keep a little eye on these other bodies. But if you're eliminating the belief, and there is only one belief that comes up at a time, actually, for you to eliminate. Even though it seems like we all have tons that we need to get rid of. I'm not saying we don't, but the really cool thing is that spirit, or whatever you believe in, some force that is supporting us, usually just helps us with, gives us one thing to do at a time. Thank God. And sometimes it can seem like a lot of things, but it's all usually tied together, and we find that out by doing AP process. So it's funny because I can say, what do you want to work on when we do AP process, but really, whatever is going to come out is going to be whatever you're supposed to work on, and it might be also what you think you want to work on. It depends. And it's funny because sometimes people are like, oh, my mother and my money, and then you find out, oh, they're the same. It's the same block, This is what I say about a lot of New Age techniques like affirmations. Affirmations are trying to we're like, it would be really cool if I had a shape in my mental body like this, right? Because that would be like, let's pretend like it's like an awesome geometrical shape that supports all life, okay? I'm making it in square right now. But, so let's say we do affirmations in order to put that in there. That's like saying, I'm putting a square in my mental body now. Okay, before you did that, you had this going on already in there, right? So, I'm making it as convoluted looking as possible, because unfortunately our society supports us all having very convoluted mental bodies. And we come in with this, okay? Most of us, we come in this lifetime with this already because of our society, our genetics, and our past lives. And whatever it is that we're supposed to help work on, I mean, when we're working on ourselves, we're actually helping the collective, too. So there's a lot of reasons why people have these different things in here. So it could be not even through a fault of your own, or it could be like something that you accumulated in childhood, and it doesn't really matter in the end. It's like, in the end, you might as well just shift it, right? Just get rid of some of this. Who cares why it's there? You might know. You might figure out why it's there, because that's part of a lot of people's journeys. But focusing a lot on that can sometimes be like not useful. Sometimes people are like, why did it get there? And like in psychotherapy, you spend a lot of time on the couch going, well, this part got there because this thing that happened here, at a certain time. And you haven't eliminated it is the problem. But you've become aware of it, which is the first step of evolution. So that's why all of these techniques, they all have a good effect, because, like, for instance, putting the shape in there, like affirmations do, that's going to help you start unraveling some of this, but it doesn't address what's already there. Whereas psychotherapy addresses what's already there, right? But it's not actually erasing it usually. It's just going, oh, this is here. Mm-hmm. So that's the first step of awareness, which helps it become looser. These things loosen this stuff up. The cool thing about stuff like empowerment process and the other belief systems I know is that it just goes, okay, let's just get rid of it in a couple hours. And really, when you think about it, 2 or 3 hours out of the rest of your life, so worth it. So worth it to have that. Because once you do that too, that means that all of the rest of this starts, it's like if you had a ribbon in there and it was tied together, and then you undid it, it's like, wow, all of this other stuff's going to start loosening up too. So, that has a really good effect because that affects these bodies like that. And that is how we really have good collective health, actually, as if everybody was doing this. This is very slow. I told you about that, right? You can affect things this way. It's very slow. My mentor had some good jokes about that, actually. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go?
No, I just wanted to add a comment that, the psychotherapist will just take a little box and work on it and say, and kind of makes you erase it. But the one thing I think what psychotherapists have missed is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And the other of the things that we talk about normally, in spirituality is the forgiveness, not the forgiveness of the intruder, but the forgiveness of yourself. Because after you're punishing yourself, why did I do this? Why did I do this?
Mm-hmm. And the reason why you're saying that is because forgiveness shifts the energy, and that actually erases something when you forgive. That's why, like, radical forgiveness is all completely based on forgiveness.
Yes.
And you use, go ahead, and I don't know where the pen is, but
the pen fell down. Sorry.
That's cool.
It's right there.
So
you want my pen? You can write your email.
Oh, thank you.
I will crawl.
Oh my God. Sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just.
It's okay.
Okay, my pen back.
Okay, here you go.
So everybody gets this then, huh? Gas station?
Well, a comment. About 20 years ago, I was introduced to the power of affirmations and at first, it did make a shift because it was changing the way I was consciously thinking throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, it almost became like an addiction because I had to do more and more and more because there was something wanting that thing I have to keep repressing.
Yeah.
And then finally, I realized that you've got a perfect picture of it. There's stuff down there.
Yeah, that's a really good example, actually. You're going. It's like when you change your diet, right? You get these energetic effects, and you're like, woo-hoo! When you're doing affirmations, you're like, yay! I put a square in here, and the mental body, stuff that was already in there is like, whoo! Wait a second, we've got a different thing going in. What happens in your mind, like every day, are these loose thoughts, right? These loose thoughts. This is like hardwired stuff in here, right? This is like your hard drive, And what happens every day, it's like what comes into your computer through the internet. Kind of, I'm trying to give you a good analogy, but you know what I'm saying. It's based on what this can support, what you can think in the daytime. But if you have some random thought that doesn't have anything to do with this, it's not going to stick in there, really, right? Unless this whole process of affirmation starts to erase some of this, which it usually loosens them up. But, so even though it's very important what we think every day, we have this hard drive that we're not aware of. This stuff that I'm talking about is really subconscious. It's not, we're not aware of it at all. It's unconscious. It's like part of our body almost. So that's why people being really concerned about what they think every day, I'm not even sure that's completely healthy, because then, we're having conversations where people are like, oh, don't say that, and then
somebody will think
we're
you're
like,
weird.
well, that was a negative thought, and we're like banging ourselves over the head for it, and it's like, that's a little unnatural. You should be able to keep thinking. If you're working on this, if you're working on eliminating this stuff, then you're naturally going to start thinking more and more positively. And when people say things that you don't like, whatever, they're not going to stick in here as much because they don't have anything to stick to. So the good thing about doing something like empowerment process regularly is that you don't have to worry anymore about what you think every day. Like, you know, you don't have to correct yourself and like try to be putting these special messages in. All that stuff can help if you're not doing anything else. But what I find is the most important is to just keep erasing this, you know, because naturally we are supposed to be healthy. Okay, our nature wants to support our cells and our brains and everything to be totally whole, because that's what our source is whole, right? So it's not, all of this stuff will work better if we're erasing our other hardwired beliefs. But even if we didn't put affirmations in, this would help. This would like, we would be erasing the hardwired beliefs with belief processes, then naturally we would start having these good experiences that would create a better belief body for us. Like, I'm not sure that people are supposed to, you know, in a completely enlightened state, even be attached to concepts at all. You know, so having good concepts in there that loosens up your other stuff is good. Eventually, I think if you're enlightened, you're just like unattached. So you don't need anything in there.
But a lot of that was brought in or inflicted on us as children.
Right. So
And-
that's this stuff that you didn't
Yeah.
know about that you had.
Right. And so it's going back and acknowledging.
So that's the thing is, instead of doing this, instead of being like, I don't have this stuff, it's not here, I have this instead, saying, okay, let's look at this stuff, be aware of it, and then erase it. That's, to me, a more permanently useful solution. Any other questions about that before we talk more specifically about empowerment process?
I just wanted to say, I still use affirmations, they're just
Yeah.
worded differently. It's more of, I'm okay exactly where I am. And I use what's in there as messages.
That's really good because not only affirmations are really good influence, right? Because they're putting what you want in there, and they're so they're creating what you want, and then they're starting to loosen up this other stuff because usually they don't fit together, your old stuff and whatever your affirmation is. What you're talking about is also using acceptance, which I believe is the highest form of spiritual technique, actually. And that's what I teach people to do with their emotional body, is accept their feelings. Because if you can accept every feeling you're having, it ceases to be a problem, actually. It's not easy. I have a whole process, and it does take commitment, like people have to do. You have to keep doing it, you know? But the more you do it, the easier it gets.
The one thing that has, I've been doing this for the past 6 months is, if my past has called, just send it to voicemail, I don't leave them. So, you know, if anybody calls me from their family or friends or something, or, you know, you did, I don't leave them. I don't want to know about that one. I live in the present, so that's past, it goes to voicemail. So can we talk something different?
Yeah, they're probably going,
Yeah,
they're probably going like, hey, we want you to hold on to this. You remember this that we all share?
No,
Yeah.
I don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
Because we all share a lot of this, right?
Yes,
Some of
yes.
this is just from being in our society. Like, that's why we don't believe we can fly, and we believe that we have to die when we're 90 or whatever it is. You know, there's all this stuff that's in there from just being part of Earth right now. And it's all changing really fast, actually, right now, which is why it's exciting. Because people are like, whoa, you know, there's a big opening up going on. So, yeah, there's a phenomenon, too, where people will, like, grab onto you if you're trying to let go of stuff and move on. Some people will be like, no, we both share this. Remember? Please stay here with me. So, yeah. And I found, as far as the emotional body too, that if you're dealing with this, because it creates emotions, then as long as you know how to feel, accept, and love your emotions and yourself, which is, it's harder than it sounds, but it's also not as hard as it seems, too. Because you just talk to yourself. You just talk to yourself, because that's how you create everything, is by talking, keep sending messages in there. So that's basically how I do emotional processing, is actually using that body still. And you can do it through the energetic, too. I mean, you've had really good energy experiences, maybe with Reiki or something like that, where you feel some good effects on your emotions. And that's usually just, all it's doing is it's energetically accepting those emotions. You can also do it mentally, accepting those emotions. But those are the two most effective ways, because they're right next to the emotional body. And this is something I love talking about, because most spiritual movements are like, you're a soul. You should meditate or do something some soul technique that has an effect on your mental body. And then they go, and it has an effect on your energetic and your physical body too. And they totally ignore this, like, completely. It's so funny. It's almost universal too. There's very few people who talked about emotions until recently.
Nobody talks about emotion, even in Eastern culture. It's meditation and yoga.
Yeah.
The word emotional
Which you can
doesn't
see
even
there
exist.
and there. Yeah.
Yeah, they live in this and this. Leave the sandwich meat out.
Yeah, the only explanation I can I was part of an Indian kid movement for a long time that also had that same way of looking at things, and I the only way I can figure out why that happened is just that people didn't know what to do with this, so
Definitely.
they just figured, well, because really all you can do is feel and accept, and so maybe they figured if you don't say anything, that people will just have to do that, but. It's part of the whole patriarchal system that we had in place for so long that we ignored that, and now it's a new ballgame now. Okay, so that is basically that. If we don't have any other questions, I will do a demonstration with Jan in a second for empowerment process to show everybody. There's Janet's website has a bunch of testimonials on it. So as far as like people seeing effects of the empowerment process, they talk about, people talk about better emotions. They talk about more energy, less energetic blocks. They talk about a lot of physical results, which is cool because when you do health work, you don't usually think, oh, I could do something like empowerment process, but you can. You can do something like empowerment process even though you're talking about you're writing stuff down and you're talking about beliefs and it doesn't seem related to your pain in your shoulder. If you can figure out what that pain in your shoulder actually means for you, then you can definitely use this to eliminate it.
Even from a weight loss perspective or nutritional aspect, if your emotions aren't in check from a biological standpoint, your digestive juices won't even go into your intestines, and you go into that fight or flight mode, and then your body goes into a state of stress, creating acidity.
Yeah.
So
Totally,
the more
and then it creates cortisol. Yeah.
Releasing the cortisol,
Yeah.
increasing weight gain.
Yeah, thanks for that example. Because Jan here has actually lost 20 pounds from doing empowerment processes, and that's it. She did change her diet, but she didn't do that right away. That was like almost an effect of doing the empowerment processes with me.
Yeah.
And she started spontaneously wanting to change her diet. So that is a great example because she also had a reduction in pain, and as soon as that started happening, even I started taking it more seriously because people, are always trying to find a way to reduce their pain. And most of the time, I feel that pain is related to guilt in the emotional body. Possibly shame too, but guilt and shame are two of the emotions keeping most of us in shackles. I like to use that word, it's very dramatic. And so when you figure out what belief is causing that guilt and shame, then you can definitely lose weight from the empowerment process. And a lot of people have explained better, huge improvements in relationships with people because that's pretty obvious that how we see things really affects our ability to relate to people. I've definitely gotten over health problems because of the empowerment process, and I've also had increase in energy. We've had interesting situations where my friend and I have done processes that seem to have a collective effect even. And emotionally, for sure, I have a much better life emotionally than I used to. So I can give that testimony. Jan, do you want to? I mean, pretty much mentioned your fibromyalgia and.
But also, I've been definitely afraid of water, and we're always boating and stuff like that. But I could never put my face in the water because I almost drowned when I was 3. And so we did an EP process so that I would not be afraid of water anymore. And I'm taking swimming lessons where my face is always in the water.
Very good.
So I'm pretty excited about it. Because my husband's a licensed scuba diving instructor.
Oh.
Before I met him, I used to go to the Florida State swimming champion, and none of those guys could teach me how to swim. So it was just that feeling.
Yeah.
And then also as far as relationships, there's one person at work I've been having a lot of difficulties with for the last year. And after we did a few of these, there's been a complete turnaround. She even asked me if she could help me with some of my work. And I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? You know,
I love
so,
when that happens.
yeah. So it's really interesting how that shift.
We've worked on people lately. I've worked on money issues. We've worked on health problems. We've worked on. There's been a lot of guilt, a lot of lack of confidence stuff, self-worth. But we've done all sorts of things before. Anger, sadness, grief over somebody dying, even anything. Because most of our big issues or emotional reactions in life are bigger than they need to be, right? Like even when somebody dies or something, there's a natural sadness there, of course. There's a natural feeling of loss, but usually it's an event that triggers something in us too, and that has to do with that grief body that was already in there. So, yeah. So are there any questions about effects of stuff before we do actual
Effect of anger.
anger? Yeah, I've dealt with anger a lot in the EV process. Yeah. Anger is usually related to something that needs to, I mean, you're having anger probably because something here needs to shift, you know? You're outgrowing something in here, usually. That's why people have anger. And anger is very empowering. So it usually has something to do with a belief that's kind of powerless or helpless. You know, so there was some anger there. Or a boundary issue, very often. Not always, but that's a lot of it. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to get my stuff set up to work on Jan, and I'll stop recording. When Janet comes in June, she does a whole workshop that just basically teaches you the process. She teaches you how to use your intuition in order to facilitate the process better. And people just do, it's mostly experiential. You just do the process a lot. So that's what that looks like. And sometimes we get really nice groups. She also does group meetings at her house that people who've done empowerment process before, they're considered empowerment grads. So you can Skype in to meetings if you want, or conference call in to meetings to do group processes. And I might end up doing group processes actually too. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's available to you as far as if you like being in a group, you know. And then when you learn that, then you can do that for yourself at home whenever you want to. So it's just a really empowering, empowerment is a good word, because it's just really empowering to have a technique that you know can change things right away when you need to on your own, you know? And then you can help other people too if you need to. A lot of times people find that their family is not open to it, and then they start doing processes themselves, and then it's like there's a lot, you know, some opening up and a lot of difference usually in the whole family dynamic and the family, the way that they, because there's shared beliefs within families. So when you start working on your beliefs, your family either benefits and they don't know why, or they start realizing that you're doing something good and they want to do it too. So
I have a sister who very nicely did it.